Greetings, this is Warrior King, and the time has come for the lions and the lioness to tell their own story. This is the lion's voice. Give thanks and praise for the wonderful blessing that's been poured on me. Give thanks and praise. Jah use I as an instrument to set the people free. Jah give her the powers to chant. Jah give her the powers to chant. Ras Tafari, the lion's voice.
This is Mama Thea of Asli Pure, and when I want to hear the story from the lion and the lioness, I listen to Lion Voice with Kwasi Bonsu.
Because God belongs to no religion. There's no way we are going to expect His Majesty. When we elevate Him to a Godhead, it's an elevation that we do, it's a choice we make. I can wake up tomorrow and decide I'm no more a Rastaman and I don't see His Majesty as God, and nothing is going to happen to me fundamental. I'm not going to go to hell. I won't burn. I won't do nothing. Nothing fundamental is going to happen to me. But it's a choice that we make. We elect Him to be our divine King, our God. So if I say Haile Selassie is God, based on my African understanding of what God is, then the question is, what is wrong with that? Particularly for the people who say, all nations shall bow, all tongue shall confess. Now I come with my African tongue to confess His divinity, and it become problematic because I'm not confessing it from Judeo-Christian point of view.
The year is 1892, and the land of Ethiopia has been experiencing 4 years of terrible famine and drought. They call it the Kikuken, or the evil days. At least 1/3 of the human population and 90% of the cattle have died. The hyenas have feasted on so many carcasses that they have become overweight and barely able to move. Just when the people could take no more of the evil days, a woman named Wasiro Yeshimabe is giving birth in a place called Erjersa Gora. This is her 9th attempt to bring forth new life. Her previous 8 attempts only resulted in death. Will this child live? Thankfully, a healthy baby boy is born. His first cries are drowned by thunder and lightning flashes across the night sky. The heavens open up and torrential rain starts to fall. Ethiopia's drought is over, and the baby boy is given the name Tafari, meaning one to be feared or respected. Tafari's father, Ras Menen, is a very important man in 1892 Ethiopia. Although he is overjoyed at the birth of his newborn son, he cannot spend much time with him. Ras Menen is the governor of Harar and must get back to the famous walled city to deal with its affairs. Furthermore, he is the foreign minister of Ethiopia, and having traveled to different places in Europe, he is very aware of the material and military advances they have made and the looming threats they pose to his country. Ras Menen knows that the majority of Ethiopians have no idea what is coming, and that he has to work that much harder to secure the realm. Tafari would grow up to become the legendary emperor, Haile Selassie I. To understand his journey, we must first understand the Ethiopia that he was inheriting, and what it was like when he was born in 1892. Get your copy of Kwasi Bonsu's book, Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1, The Rise of the Priestly Warrior Kings, and increase your knowledge about the history, politics, and culture of Ethiopia in 1892, and how it connects to the rest of African and world history at the time. Haile Selassie I, Ethiopia, Volume 1 is available for purchase at www.bookmanexpress.pub. Please visit for more information.
Give thanks. I like to greet the global family once again. Earlier today, I was on radio having an interview, and I was telling the brethren that as youths growing up as Rastafari, one of my brethren, Little Joe, used to say that without the coronation, there'd be no Rastafari.
Facts.
Because it was the coronation that signified who His Imperial Majesty is. And it was a coronation that the elders had said, look to Africa for the day the king will be crowned. That is the day of redemption. So the coronation is a very significant event or milestone within the Rastafari chronology, you know. And for I and I here in Ghana, right now as I'm speaking, it's being celebrated. I just had to step out of the celebration and come to our brethren's place, you know, because of the sound. And apart from here, it's being celebrated in Befikrom in the central region. It's been celebrated in Kwasi at the Legacy Gardens and other parts of the country. Now, if you take away Coronation Day, there'd be no Rastafari, because it was that day that 72 nations went and testified to the significance of the day, you know. So there's no doubt, there's no ambiguity. For I and I, the Coronation Day is the single most significant event, because yes, His Majesty was born on 23rd July, but if he hadn't been crowned King of Kings and Lords of the tribe of Judah, there'd be no Rastafari. Give thanks.
Give thanks, give thanks. The volume dropped at the last part, but I think we got the fullness. If you're watching live, and I know hundreds will watch after, just drop a comment. Let us know where on earth you're watching from. If you have questions for our guests, put them in the comment section. We want to keep this live. This is a global live. So let us check in. All of the ones who are watching live, let us know where you're watching from. And if you are watching this on the replay, also just put a comment. Let us know where on earth the eye is watching from. All right, Honorable Mike Pam, what does the coronation mean to the eye?
Yes, give thanks, my king. And give thanks, kings, yes, and the Empress. Yes, indeed. Coronation is the day. In fact, that's the reason why Anna is late to come up for the show right now, because Anna was at coronation ground at the Italia, you know. And if I wanted to do this at the Italia, the noise, because enough of the item, they are still, you know. But I have to come back home for me to do this, and then still get back because we have iration all through the night. So the coronation is the essence, you know, of I Rastafari throat. Because the coronation of His Imperial Majesty, you know, as the Alpha, and Empress Menen as the Omega, you know, is the embodiment of I liberty, you know, because that was the day the staff was given, and the witnesses from all over the world, like my Lord just said, 72 nations, enough man, them, and all the chants. Today we've been chanting all the psalms, all the psalms that were chanted, the ones that that His Majesty himself chanted, the ones that the Abuna chanted, the one that the choristers chanted, and all that. So we're following that, and when you listen and, you know, go back again and, you know, open your minds to those, you know, psalms, it gives you some perspective that you ordinarily wouldn't have understood about the divinity of His Imperial Majesty. So the coronation is the embodiment of I, you know, trod in this liberty and holding up Selassie as ex-rightful ruler, King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah, elect of himself, Selassie.
Yes, I give thanks, and I'm glad that you brought up the Psalms, because and I'm coming to the eye, Field Marshal Toto. The coronation is seeped, you know, in this same Judeo-Christian symbology that the eye has been very vocal, because I follow the eye, and I you know, I definitely understand where the eye coming from in terms of, you know, as African tradition, and I'm very much against the demonization of African tradition that I see a lot of ones take from Western Christianity. His Majesty never hold those type of position. However, you know, I think how does the I reconcile the standpoint in terms of a total rejection of Judeo-Christian symbology with the symbols that were at the coronation, the Psalms, the fact that he was crowned by the Orthodox Church, which at that time was controlled by the See of Saint Mark. This was before autocephaly, when Ethiopia separated the church. When you talk about the scepter, when you talk about, you know, even the title of the conquering lion of the tribe of Judah, you know, how does the I reconcile all of that symbology with the I position that this is a colonial vestige, or the Judeo-Christian is a colonial vestige?
Give thanks. The coronation was not to crown His Majesty into a god. His Majesty is made a god by us. The coronation was a pure Christian setup, and even after that pure Christian setup, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, having performed all those elaborate rituals, they still don't define Haile Selassie as God. So the coronation got nothing to do with the Godhead of Haile Selassie. The Godhead of Haile Selassie have everything to do with the declaration of the Ras Tafari, that the Ras Tafari declare him God. So the coronation, the psalms, the ceremonies, the elaborateness, the 12 nations that were invited, actually it's 12 nations, it was not 72 nations. This is a Rastafari biblical mythology, because if I start to ask now who were those 72 nations, very few will be able to explain that. But there were actually 13 nations. Haile Selassie explained it in his autobiography, and the rationale of why those 13 nations were invited were the nation that has concluded a treaty with Ethiopia. So these are things that come out of the Kabbalah, biblical mythology, to say the 72 nations around God and so forth. They predate the coronation itself. It's something that come out of the Talmud and Mishnah and the Kabbalah of the Judeo-Christian perspective. So we don't look at the Ethiopian Orthodox Church as an extension of Rastafari, because it is not. By any imagination, it is not. I was given a scholarship to study with the Ethiopian Orthodox Church between 2004 and 2006 by the late Abuna Paulos. And for the whole 2 years, they spent every day trying to convert me into a Christian, to convince me to drop the whole idea that Haile Selassie is God and to cut my hair. So I find it very obscenely obsessive for the Rastafari to hold on to a system that does not even spend a day trying to defend them. But that system spent every second trying to convert them. I know a lot of Rastafari who got baptized in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, and they got their dreadlocks cut off, and then they were made to denounce Haile Selassie and to embrace Jesus Christ. So therefore, I don't see the Ethiopian history, the Ethiopian religion, or the coronation as an extension of Rastafari levity. Rastafari levity began in 1930, as you rightfully say, and actually historically from 1932, when Leonard Howell started to preach, Archibald Dunkley, Joseph Nathaniel Hibbert, and Robert Hines started to preach, and preaching 4 different school of thoughts. And mainly when Howell came up with the Promise Key, was building on 2 other publications, the Parchment Scroll of Black Supremacy and the Holy PB, and which these 3 books were initially designed to replace the Bible, because they were accompanied by a statement that say, put not a book that curses the black man on the altar of black supremacy. So now, and His Majesty has denounced some of these religious syncretism tendencies, because the problem with religious syncretism, it breeds schizophrenia, and it has done that largely within the movement. Because, for instance, Bill McNeil asked Haile Selassie, His Majesty, people worship you as Christ, both in Ethiopia and outside of Ethiopia. And he said, I am not. And I've told certain Rastafarians I am not. And men should not think or pretend that a deity emanates from God. Now, these are deep theological abstract statements. And Rasta deal with them from a simplistic point of view, not from their depth, that what is a deity? What is emanation? What is man? What is the definition of man? What is, when you say deity, it does not emanate from man, what does it mean? While we are insisting that this man is a deity that emanated through the line of group of men, including Solomon and David. What does it mean? So by refusing to analyze these very pertinent abstractions, we are therefore saying Haile Selassie is a low-key lying about his divinity. And we try to cover it up with other things like, no, he's not, he's being what is it? He's being modest. You know, he can't just say, I'm God. Why can't he say he's God? God is God. In all scriptures, God is very clear about his Godhead or whatever, that, you know, I'm God, worship me alone, like the biblical God. I'm a jealous God, worship me alone, don't have any other God. But this one is like, no, we will have to do apologies on his behalf, that no, you know, yeah, he's humble, his humility does not allow him to say I'm Christ. So I basically say, oh, he's low-key lying about his divinity. So, but my point is, we don't need any of those things to point out the divinity of His Majesty, because it is about the person, not the pageantry around him, not the amount of psalms that were read, not the amount of chant, because people who sang those songs and chanted those chants, they still don't see his divinity. And his divinity does not emanate from those rituals. It emanates from the Rastafari ability to identify the God in him, which is something very fundamental in African divine kingship. It was there with the pharaohs, it was there with our kings, it was there with the Kabakas in Uganda, it was there with the Mwamis of Rwanda. We can trace it within our African cultural perspective, that is it an African thing to see the God in the king? If it is so, then we can culturally say it is a practice that we have. Because again, you see the assumption that the throne of Ethiopia began with the meeting of Solomon and Sheba is also a false historical narrative. When the Queen of Sheba went to meet Solomon, there were 97 queens that ruled Ethiopia before her. And there was only 2 kings that ruled Israel before Solomon. It was only David and Saul. Before that, they never had kings, but Ethiopia had about 97 queens, all the way to King Kush, to Ham and Kush. And then after that, you had this the flood. Before the flood, there was 22 sovereigns from King Ori. So it is the oldest monarchy, recorded monarchy. So that does not need Solomonic justification. It is older than the Solomonic line. It existed before the Solomonic line. It continued before that. And Haile Selassie point that in his book, recorded by C.F. Ray, in the Land of the Blue Nile, where Haile Selassie gives the whole lineage of kings from King Ori, before Solomon, before David, the first king of kings of Ethiopia, to himself, and from a memory that these are his line of kings that he followed through. So he traces his divinity beyond Solomon and David, and I don't understand why should I begin his divinity from David and Solomon when he traces his line, and even those titles, King of Kings. Those titles are not Judeo-Christians. Nebuchadnezzar was also referred to as King of Kings. When Daniel was giving the interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's dream, he referred to him as, "O thou king, you are the King of Kings, but God shall cut you down and humble you." We have that. When His Majesty went to Malawi in 1966, he met Inkosi Yamakos, which simply means the King of Kings of the kings of Malawi. The Zulu king is the King of Kings. The concept of the King of Kings is not biblical. It's about the paramount, it's about the king over other kings around. Just like its Ethiopian origin beyond the Bible, in its Ethiopian origin was like Ethiopia had kings, King of Shua, King of Tigria, King of Sidama, king of the Oromos, and when you become the emperor, you are king of all kings first. You are primarily king of kings of all the kings of Ethiopia before you can even carry on biblical mythological title. Is that you are in actuality a king over all the reigning kings. So it's the same thing today. The Zulu king here in South Africa is the king over all these other kings that are found in the land of KwaZulu. The king of Abatembu is the king of Izwelonge. He's the king over all these other kings that you found them around, because Africa was a continent of kingdoms before it became a continent of countries through the Berlin Conference. Now, as a continent of kingdoms, we had kingship from Cape to Cairo, Morocco to Madagascar. But in the certain polity or a country or demarcation, you'll find the king over all these other kings. So what we are looking at is to look at something African within the titles of His Majesty, and we identify with that. Like we say that he himself traces line beyond Solomon and Sheba union, but also we look at what he said in his utterances. He said, yes, I am a Christian, but as a king, I'm equally a Christian, a Muslim, and a pagan. Now, he made mention of three spiritual groups, if you wish. But why do we choose to emphasize one group, the Christian part of it? Why we don't emphasize the Islamic part? Because there was that Islamic part. His mother was a Muslim. And I met a Rastaman from Rwanda, in Rwanda, when I visited Rwanda in the year 2001. I met a Rastaman called Ras Masada. He used the Quran to rationalize Rastafari. Everything he say, keep on saying the Quran say, like this Rastas who always say the Bible say, Psalm this, chapter this. Him is the Quran, 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 Quran. That is the second perspective. And now we are coming up with the third perspective of the pagan part, where he said, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, and I'm a pagan. Because this is just Western scholarship of referring to African spirituality as paganism and all of that. But we say His Majesty's identify with that. But also, when you look at it now from an esoteric point of view, there is no way you can be a Christian, a Muslim, and a pagan. And there's no way you can be a Christian and a Muslim at the same time. So our point and perspective is that His Majesty, when he say he's all of that, is just a way to say he's none of that. Because God belongs to no religion. There's no way we are going to expect His Majesty. When we elevate him to a Godhead, it's an elevation that we do, it's a choice we make. I can wake up tomorrow and decide I'm no more a Rastaman and I don't see His Majesty as God, and nothing is going to happen to me fundamental. I'm not going to go to hell. I won't burn. I won't do nothing. Nothing fundamental is going to happen to me. But it's a choice that we make. We elect him to be our divine king, our God. So if I say Haile Selassie is God, based on my African understanding of what God is, then the question is, what is wrong with that? Particularly for the people who say, all nations shall bow, all tongue shall confess. Now I come with my African tongue to confess His divinity, and it become problematic because I'm not confessing it from Judeo-Christian point of view. So
Well, great is the Almighty, and greatly to be praised in the city of Haile Selassie I, the mountain of His holiness.
Yeah, from Cape to Cairo, from Timbuktu to the Nile, the whole entire continent.
Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion, from Accra to Addis Ababa.
Yes, it's a beautiful continent, better control, mama.
Very beautiful.
From Cape to Cairo, from Timbuktu to the Nile, I smile for Mama Africa.
I hear you call Mama Africa. Been so long since I see Mama. Father of Africa set the law. use solar energy, use sanitation to build the ecology. We utilizing green technology. We hailing Haile Selassie first without apology. And then we build the youths them economy. We dismantle Babylon monopoly. We teach the youths them how to live properly. Tell them make sure them got the title for them property.
Yes, this beautiful continent that I'm gonna show Mama Africa. From Cape to Cairo, from Timbuktu to the Nile, like smile for Mama Africa.
I love you, mama, your heart never harden. I wanna turn all your slums into garden. I wanna stop all of your youths from starving. I wanna stop all of your tribes from warring. So much to say, so many feelings. We both been hurt, we both need healing. Since the League of Nations you've been appealing. You stand up against them backdoor dealing.